we got ourselves in a brand new MCU film, which again is crushing it at the box office because that's what all of them do on every level known to man, even if it's by comparison. Um, so, I mean, I guess let's go around with overall thoughts before we get into details and characters and stuff like that. Walt, you just joined us, so what were your overall thoughts of the film?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Really loved the film. I remember like preparing myself mentally for how this film was going to be. Obviously, the emotional level of it, and then I was actually speaking with Jason like before, where we were talking about the runtime of the film, and that it seemed a little bit longer than like the standard for the MCU since Phase 4 began, and we came to the conclusion that like, well, it's probably going to be like instead of just a regular 3-act film, as most films are, it will be its 3 acts, but it'll probably have like a prologue, which is handling T'Challa, and that is how it went. Yeah. And I think they handled it masterfully. I think it was very tastefully done, very respectfully done. And then once that segment was over and we got into the film, I think the film on its own was very strong and had a lot of different intertwining storylines and themes that like I feel like I'm still unpacking. Like I want to see it again because I feel like there's more stuff I want to unpack, obviously.
Yeah, no, I definitely agreed. I mean, echo everything you actually said. Did you see it once or twice this weekend?
I saw it once. I'm ready to go again, though.
Okay. Jason?
Oh, I love this. This was fantastic. I thought it was a powerful movie. I love the fact that we don't have a bad guy in this movie outside of the United States government. By the way, that they're the bad guys, but like Namor is not the bad guy. He's an anti-hero with very clear and understandable motivations. I love the way they handled T'Challa's death. It almost felt like they were handling Chadwick Boseman's death, right? Like we didn't even know he was sick until it was too late. There was nothing I can do. Why didn't he tell me? Like that's Shuri. But like, isn't that kind of how the public felt when Chadwick died, right? Like, we didn't even know he was sick. Like, people were talking about, oh, he got skinny. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. The rumor mill was going. The fact is, the guy was hiding from everyone that he had cancer. So that kind of felt real to me, and I enjoyed it. I loved the moment of silence that we get for Chadwick in the beginning. We get the opening credits, and instead of the pomp and circumstance and the big rising score and all the past things, it's just all Chadwick Boseman, and it's a moment of silence for the man, and I love that. And yeah, I loved it. I loved everything about this movie, and I'm very excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I also did. I think it was a lot of the Jason. We just talked about it last week when we covered the original Black Panther. What we were guessing was going to happen with this film, and we knew that they were going to address, T'Challa. You had to. That was going to be the first thing. We had estimated the first 20 minutes of the film were going to kind of be what that was. And I agree with you 100%. I do think it's even further. They said T'Challa, but you knew that they were addressing Chadwick's passing and everything like that, and pretty much how the cast and everything felt about him, and those emotions came through. I thought with a lot of the acting. I think that was one of the strongest parts of the film, and it was beginning at the end, and it was peppered through for different motivations for certain characters. The acting in this film was incredible, absolutely incredible. Angela Bassett is the first person I would want to shout out with that. She was unbelievable. She's always great, but she was extra in this. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if she was nominated, for an Academy Award for this film. And
just that scene where she comes in and she it's after the Wakandan embassy the Wakandan safe house, whatever, for the vibranium was attacked, and they're kind of trying to bring her to task for not living up to T'Challa's promise, and she just gives this speech, and then it ends with all of the mercenaries on their knees in front of everyone. Yeah. It's like, wow, Angela Bassett gave that speech. Like, guys, Angela Bassett's in this fucking movie just being as awesome as she is, and it's just shining through with the character in that moment, just where she comes in and just commands this room. I mean, oh my God, what an awesome performance.
And I think the actor or actress that I was the most impressed with was Letitia Wright, because we speculated that, I mean, the only film I've ever seen her in were pretty much her Marvel films, like her Shuri appearances. I have not actually personally seen her in any other films, but Jason, I know you had speculated, you were wondering if we were getting all of these extra characters and extra themes because they were maybe the MCU was, I mean, Marvel Studios was concerned that she couldn't carry her own film. She absolutely proved she definitely can. The range of emotions that Shuri has to deal with in this film are, I mean, it's almost everyone you could imagine from beginning to end.
My question was answered. She can carry a film on her own. That my question was answered. I stand corrected. The fact she goes through so much emotionally in this movie, and so much of this movie rests on her emotional journey, and she sells it every single time, every single second she sells it. She does such an amazing job.
I agree. She really stepped up. One as an actress, like it's just like you saw so much more from her as a character in this film. I actually have seen her in one more thing. It was a single episode of Black Mirror. She's in an episode of Black Mirror.
Oh, which one?
Black Museum. That's her.
Oh, she is in that one. It is.
And that's
okay because I know
pretty
that
much runs that episode. But I remember like in watching the film, the fact that they put her through two of those funerals, I was like, oof. Then like the impact of just like she didn't burn the thing and then she needed it again. Oh my god, that was horrible.
Yeah,
very, very amazing stuff.
Yeah, so I guess we can get into details, and I guess the person to start off with is Shuri. I mean, her entire, like we just mentioned, her entire journey through this film, where it opens with her trying to save, T'Challa, and they don't name, what's killing him, but I think we all kind of assume they were going to stick to something similar to what happened in real life, and I feel like they do in this. And it ties into a story thread, which I think this film does a fantastic job of tying in story threads that were set up in Black Panther. She's trying to recreate the herb, and she can't, obviously, because Killmonger burned them all down, so they're not just accessible. And I also I had mentioned last week, I wanted it to be something that wasn't like easily fixable by vibranium or something like that. Like it's not something that could be just easily fixed. And she tries to, and she can't. And she misses. She can't be on her brother's side. And even her AI is kind of telling her you might want to be there by his side, and that she has to kind of like get that information from her mother. And that's how her journey starts in this film. Wow, it's just, I don't know. It's even a lot to even talk about right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Big kudos to the writers' room on this film. Like, after watching it, I remember like I'm driving home with my wife, and the first thing that I kept thinking to myself was like, what would this have been if not for Chadwick's passing? Because it seemed so organic and seemed like so like melded into the movie, like you said, like Killmonger's burning of all the heart-shaped herb became such a major plot point for this film. And I was just like what was the plan going forward had this tragedy not struck us? Because it seemed like, and so I say kudos to the writers who really took tragedy and something horrible happening and turned it into really amazing art and really amazing story progression, and it's just really well done.
Yeah,
I agree, and I kind of wonder. I'm sure it would have been as good, but it would have been so. I'm not wondering that, but it would have been different. Like because this is a Shuri-led movie, we get to spend a lot of time with her, and they get to really explore her grief, as opposed in juxtaposition with the grief of Namor, or the Submariner as he's known in the comic books, or Namor as I always called him, but that's not how we call it. I used to say
Thanos also, or something like that.
Yeah,
I used to say his name wrong completely for years.
We don't know. We don't hear that stuff spoken. But like we get some great stuff between her and him, where they're really connecting as people through, and also understand each other, because they are very protective of their own, right? Anything to protect our own. And that's why Shuri goes to their kingdom. That's why her and Namor connect. And I do kind of wonder, like, we wouldn't have had that if Chadwick didn't pass, and I really am curious, what would we have had?
Yeah, and I know there was interviews that had mentioned with like Ryan Coogler had mentioned that they had finished like once they got the information that Chadwick had passed, the film was written already, like it was done, and they were ready to, they were going to start like pre-production and stuff like that. So they had to kind of like scrap the whole thing and start from the beginning, start from scratch. Which, seeing this film and laid out and Shuri's whole thing, like it's kind of astonishing that we got what we got, considering what they had to deal with in the time frame they had done it from. But I think Namor was always supposed to be the villain, or whatever the villain, because I'll put that in quotes.
Antagonist.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like I do think I did see a lot of him as being similar. Again, I'll use quotes, villain as Killmonger was. Like,
but
not like villain, but
I'm going to disagree on one point. And Walter and I were talking about this today.
Okay.
And I feel very strongly about this. Killmonger is absolutely, like, if we put aside that Killmonger was right, because, philosophically, Killmonger's right, but, like, what he's doing is kind of not right? Mm-hmm. But I would say that Namor is not the villain, because philosophically what he's doing is right, and for his people and for his town and for what he's protecting, his actions are also correct. Because like the other states, the United States and the other world powers are 100% looking for vibranium, and they have it. They will 100% murder for that vibranium if they have to. Mm-hmm. And Namor's lived through that. His whole town had to become fish people to survive colonists like this. So whereas I think Killmonger was reacting to a wrong that was done a long time ago, which was terrible, but there were other ways that you can kind of try to right that wrong societally, because he is in our society. He is one of us in our society. This is a society unto itself that is 100% in danger if it doesn't take up arms. And so when Namor goes, I'm going to wipe them all out if I have to, I don't think he's the bad guy in doing that, because if your family wants to take what my family has, and other families have done that before, and I got to protect my family, I'm not gonna bat an eye about killing you and yours. And I think that's where he is. So I don't think he is a bad guy like Killmonger. I don't think he's a villain at all. I think he's just the antagonist because we're not in his society.
All right. Well, that's interesting. I know we had jumped to Namor at this.
We did. But...
No, which is fine. We can get back to Shuri in a second, because I think this is we got something good going here. So, Walt, what was your perspective on this? What was about the comparison between Killmonger and Namor, which I think is going to be a logical thing where people are going to.
I agree. Yeah. And like Jason said, we were speaking earlier about this because he was asking me, like, have you been hearing? Because he knows I'm on the internet all the time. I just live in the virtual space. So I'm constantly reading reviews, like skimming and hearing what people say. So one big thing that I got from a lot of people was that some people felt that this movie was very similar to the first Black Panther, because Namor and Killmonger kind of represented the same ideology and same ideas, kind of, in that, like, let's take back or get back at those, that have wronged us or things like that. Mm-hmm. And I also feel like it's not exactly the same. It's not cut and paste. And also, like, when I think of like the villains of Marvel, right? Like, walking out of the theater, I didn't think, well, let's add him to the list of villains of Marvel. Usually after a Marvel movie, you're like, oh, where does he stack up against the Thanoses and the Lokis and the Killmongers? And then I don't think Namor fits in with that crew. Like, he wouldn't be invited to the club with those guys because he's really just doing his own thing. And I say it's very impressive, because in movies, at least, it's not as easy as it is in comics to develop like an anti-hero. Yeah. Like, that term anti-hero is something that's really like dubious and hard to really pinpoint. And I think they did a really good job of giving us a movie that had as an anti-hero. So he's like not a villain. He's the antagonist of this film, but he's an anti-hero because he's really doing what's best for his people. He's doing the right thing for his people. He just doesn't give a shit about other people.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, listen, either you're with us or you're against us. I mean, it's kind of
basically
essentially what he tells Shuri, and that's kind of what his thing is, because he even proposes at one point, like, listen, kind of, we should team up. We should kind of help each other out, or I'm going to wipe you guys out. One or the other. That's what's going to happen. But I agree with you, though. I agree with you both 100% that you're right. They do get him as an anti-hero, which we had seen Black Adam a couple of weeks ago, which kind of, I don't think that nails the thing quite as much as I enjoyed that film. I don't think this does it a bit more. Like, I can see Namor down the line being side by side with other heroes in this, if the mission or anything like that is what's best for his people. Or, there's also the belief that the thing is being set up where by the end of the film with Namor's thing, because he has that conversation at the end in the prologue where it's like, I can't believe you went ahead and you kind of bent the knee to Wakanda, like and he's like, no, we did what was best and everything. I just want you would assume that it's being set up that maybe they're going to distance themselves from him and he's going to not necessarily be with his people for so long, and there may be something there, to unpack there. So, yeah, no, I agree. It could be true anti-hero, like we've heard about Venom being anti-hero, like that thing's getting thrown around just because a studio wants to make a movie about a villain who we all know is a villain, but they're gonna spin it this way.
There
anti-hero definitely nailed in this film. Sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
No, I just said anti-hero has been nailed best in this. This is the best example of anti-hero that I've seen in a film.
Okay. Yeah,
no, I agree. It's definitely up there. And what I like too about it is the actor. This actor, by the way, is amazing. I don't know him from anything. Walter and I were talking about him before, but I loved his portrayal here. And what he does best is there are times when he is menacing and scary, and he's not a guy I want to get on his bad side. But there are times where he's genuinely good-natured. Like when he's showing Shuri around, he doesn't want to hurt anyone. Like he's doing what he has to do, right? And this is why I say he's not a villain and that he's an anti-hero, sure. But even I would even argue he's a hero in his own people's view and just not ours, right? A hero is a relative term because he's not a bad guy. He's not hurting anyone for fun. If it were up to him, everyone would just leave him the fuck alone and his town and his kingdom, and no one would bother him. And until they were looking for vibranium, it's exactly what he and his did. And so, and then when he goes with Shuri, he has this great moment. Yeah, we're getting along. We have a lot in common. I'm a good guy. You're a good person. Oh, I'll murder everyone you care about if you come to me, come to my home and try to do that. But hey, if you don't do that, we're good. And then even at the end, where you had brought up in that prologue scene, like, well, you kneeled to them, and he's like, no, I didn't kneel. I wanted an alliance. She showed mercy when she didn't have to, which means she's someone who can be trusted. We now have that alliance. The world is going to attack Wakanda, and we're going to have Wakanda's back, which means we're going to come out on top. Like, there's just such an intelligent take on that character that's why I don't even feel I would even be willing to argue it's not even an anti-hero. It's just a hero in a different culture representing different values than we have, because everything he does, if he was doing that for Wakanda or the United States or the Avengers or people that we have gotten to know in this world, I don't think we'd be calling him an anti-hero. I think we'd be saying he's the hero of this movie.
True.
And I think by another comparison, I think that is going to be natural, as people are going to compare, at least visually, or the idea is Namor to like Aquaman. Like, wait, isn't he like Aquaman and things like that? And obviously, for the MCU, they've adjusted it where it's not, Atlantia and like that. Yeah, Atlantis. It's not the same, which is I did like the fact that they altered that to make this it's more of its own thing, and also the characters are not exactly the same, besides just being under people who can breathe underwater and you know, that type of thing. They are very different characters. But I do think visually, I think the MCU handled the speaking underwater and the underwater interactions much better than the DCU did with that. I just kind of, that was something that stuck to me, especially when Namor's speaking to, you know, they're speaking amongst each other. It wasn't like, wait, we got to create air bubbles and things like that and everything else. Like, it seemed like it was a lot smoother.
It was natural. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. That was
I would love to like take a second just to talk diversity. I'm wearing my Mexico jersey because I have a really interesting connection with this film, and like I feel like once I see it again and the more I encounter it, it's gonna like rise up the list for me, because like I'm a very interesting position. That's one of the reasons Jason brought me on the show, is I am an African American. I totally align with Wakanda. My wife is Mexican, so there was a heavy Mexican influence, or not even, I can't even say Mexican influence, because she explained it to me, and I've been talking to her in prep for the show, and that like Namor's culture was representative of Mesoamerican culture, which is not solely in Mexico. Like the Mayans were like the Mexico and then Central America as well. And Tenoch Huerta, phenomenal, amazing actor. Like really like took the role over and did an amazing job with it. And once again, I'm like clapping my hands to the writer's room, because they did some really clever things. Like his name alone, like his name is just Namor, but then they like found a way to write it into like El Niño Sin Namor. So I chose the name Namor. Like that's so freaking clever. And I was like, I remember hearing the line and just thinking to myself, that's some BS I would do on like a paper in college. But you made it work. Like that, yeah. I was like, that is so genius. That is so clever. And then I was also talking to Jason about how meta it is, in that a lot of the conversation leading up to it was like, we were like, how do you say his name? Like, I say Namor. He said Namor? Like, I saw in the trailer, he said Namor. And then even in the movie, he says, you know, my people call me Kulkulkan, my enemies call me Namor. And then for the rest of the movie, Shuri, who was there when he said that, still proceeds to pronounce his name Namor. And I feel like it's kind of meta in like in the real world. Even when someone has a name that they tell you how they pronounce it, people from other cultures will probably pronounce it wrong. So I don't know if it was intentional, but it seems to me like such a meta way to like just make his name so significant, because Shuri, Riri Williams, they all still say Namor. He says Namor. His people say Namor from time to time. And I'm just like, we still don't know how to pronounce the right way to say his name. But yeah, the representation and the way the underwater city Talocan was presented was just so beautiful. The architecture was like very accurate. I've done research. I've been seeing a lot of videos and people doing video analysis of it and saying like the architecture looked really beautiful. It was really well done. And I even saw a TikTok from the premiere that like kind of made my wife emotional. But it was Tenoch Huerta, the girl who played America Chavez from Multiverse of Madness. She was at the premiere, and then the current president of visual effects at Marvel Studios is a woman from Argentina. So it's just a video of them on the red carpet, and they're on the red carpet just chatting with each other in Spanish. And like the caption of the video is like, nothing to see here. It's just representation, like literally just existing. Like it's not there's not a show being put on. Like, look at these guys talking to, they're having an interaction. And it's just really cool that we're at a point in life where like you can be walking down the red carpet and out of earshot, you can see a group of people having a conversation in Spanish. And it's not something that's like a big deal. It's like, okay, they're living their lives and I'm going to, you know, live my life all Wakanda forever and you'll do this and we'll just keep it pushing. And it's just really beautiful to see that done. And also my last note on this is on Tenoch Huerta specifically, because my wife was explaining to me, even in some Latin American cultures, within the culture itself, there's a bit of colorism in there. So the fact that him being a more darker skinned Mexican man getting this role is also a big deal. Because it's just not a role that would typically go. And there's even to like currently some like very controversial discourse going on in like pop culture and the media in Mexico about, well, why did they pick this guy? You know, why did they pick like a lighter skinned Mexican person? And it's kind of depressing because you would think like they would just gather around and support their own, but like it's not always the case, and that goes for people around the world in general, you know. So it just goes to show we've made it far, but we still have a long way to
go. Absolutely. That's unfortunate that's still a thing that's happening, but I didn't see that video of that on a red carpet. That is tremendous. That
I'll send it to you.
No, please do. Yeah. I would like to see that. That was pretty awesome. Yeah, and another thing too is regarding the character, at least, is they talk about his strength, which is a big deal in this, because they talk about how he has to kind of like be away from the water. And M'Baku has a great thing where he just says it straight out. Like, this guy is as strong as the Hulk. So can we just like acknowledge, like, because he punches him, because I love him, which by the way, we'll get to M'Baku in a minute because he's just awesome every time he's on screen.
MVP. I think we can all agree he's MVP in this movie.
We were talking. We want a Disney
my
Plus
king
show.
of Wakanda currently.
Yeah. We need the Disney Plus show. We know that Ryan Coogler's production companies working on some spin-offs. One of them needs to be on M'Baku.
Are we getting a M'Baku show, or that you're just saying?
No, I'm just saying they should be. I know the Ironheart show is one of them that's being produced by.
Yeah, and that's going to be great, but give me M'Baku.
Yeah, we need to see the Shibari tribe like get their own show headed by M'Baku, because that's going to be awesome. But he does say flat out, because he's all about, once he hears about, we should kill this fish man. Let's just go and do this. And then when he sees him, he's like, there he is, the fucking fish man. I'm going to go after him. And he tries it.
And he gets his chest caved in.
Boom!
Dude, I was sitting there, and I knew something. I knew sadness was going to happen. I knew bad things were going to happen, right? And when they punched M'Baku and they slowed it up, and you saw
and you see crack in the armor falls apart.
And you see the crack in the armor, and I was thinking, you better don't you fucking dare kill this man right now. You already took the world took T'Challa from me. Don't take M'Baku from me. Yeah, so he's definitely is going to be such a force to be reckoned with, besides in this film, but moving forward.
Yes, I'm always trying to like power scale the MCU, you know, like I'm always thinking about, because like at my heart of hearts, I'm still a kid, like a nerdy kid at the cafeteria table, wondering who would win in a fight, this guy or this guy, and like this. And I was telling Jason, I feel like this is one of the most impressive introductions of a character. Like that first scene alone with the helicopter, I was like, oh. Yeah. Those little wings on his feet can work.
And in the comics, so you look at it, kind of like it comes off as maybe looking kind of goofy and stuff like that. But in this, it is powerful. Like it means something that he's got these damn things.
It looks good.
Even Shuri at one point is like, "Did you see the wings on this man's feet? Like what's going on here?"
Part of the way that Shuri beats him at the end is she cuts one of those wings off.
She does. Very smart.
Like, yeah, and so they're a big thing, and I think they look great. I think they look even better on the kid version when you see it.
Yeah,
right. I think they look even better on him, but I think they look great on Namor as well. Like, and it's something that if you told me, I'd be saying that. Yeah, Submariner's winged feet are going to look great on the big screen. I would have been like, of course it was. And Daredevil was a great movie with Ben Affleck. Sure it was. But no, but here we are, man. It looked great.
I feel like they really went out of their way to, and in similar vein of like She-Hulk, where She-Hulk was very responsive to the things that were said on the internet. I feel like this movie also took that into account, because I knew a lot of people were like saying, like, his winged feet, how does that translate to the MCU, which is like a hyper realistic scientific thing? Like, how's this going to work? And like in the scene, like, which is it's become one of my favorite MCU scenes because it was just so impressive. But his attack on Wakanda, like, there were so many moments where they kind of like zoomed in on his feet, like on like the angles that he was attacking from. And there was moments where like above all the audio and the score and the music, you could hear like, and I was like, why is this so intimidating to me? Why? This is menacing.
By the way, this power scale thing is something that we screwed up on because I should have kept those damn Marvel Universe cards that I collected as a kid when they all had the scales and stuff like that of who was stronger. Now you got to flip them over and whatever, man. Like it's I don't know what the hell happened to him.
He's a big hitter in the MCU right now. He's definitely up there
for sure. And to compare him to the Hulk is like, all right, now we got an idea of where the hell this guy is at right here.
Yeah.
And also, I want to point out how awesome it is that the Atlanteans have the ability to sing and draw people overboard to kill themselves, and they explain it like it's the sonic attack, because that's literally the lore of mermaids and mermen.
Sirens.
Like, the sirens, right? Like from ancient Greece even. And so that kind of that denotes that kind of shows us that these are the mermaids of lore. These are the sirens of lore. Like in all these epic poems and stuff where sirens exist, it's the Atlanteans. And that to me was super cool. And it was such a small thing, but it was awesome.
Yeah, and I think that also takes us to that whole thing where Riri goes ahead and we find out it's Riri that builds the machine that's tracking vibranium. So I guess that kind of brings us to, we can talk about Riri Williams in this film a bit. She's a character who's introduced. She's the one who builds that machine unknowingly. She builds it as a school project from scraps, and then the government takes it and is, of course, like, okay, we're going to go ahead and find some vibranium, starting what could be a vibranium arms race, because now, of course, everyone knows it exists, and that's another driving point behind this film. But Riri was, I was very curious to see how she was going to be introduced, if they were going to tie in her comics background, her connection to Tony Stark at all, or anything like that. Still, not really. We don't get that in this film, but it is some things are alluded to, like when they see her drawings on her chalkboard. It's like, wait, even Shuri's like, hey, is that Stark tech that's going on there? And we see that. And I do think that I got two callbacks to the original Iron Man that were here. Like that's the scene when she takes her suit for the first time and she's flying up, and seems like she keeps pushing it and going up and further. That kind of took me back to the original Iron Man when he's taking his first flight at that point. And also the obvious one we saw in the trailer where she's hammering it out and she's there working away, but she knocks out like what's shaped like a heart this time to kind of signify something else. I took those as two callbacks to Iron Man, but Riri was great. She was comic relief at times when she had to. She was also, heart of it. She was cool though, and it made me a lot more excited to get the Disney Plus series that we're gonna get. Pretty shortly actually. I think it's late next year. I think it was fall 2023. We're getting it.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed her. I don't know anything about that character. I know people are pissed off that she exists. That's about all I know about that character, because I just haven't read comic books in a long time. But like, I was watching this going, if Tony Stark were alive today in the MCU and met this woman, he would really like her. Like, she's very much, her personality is very, very Tony Stark, where she's just like, look, I'm brilliant and I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And I got something to prove and a chip on my shoulder. And let me show you what I can do. And I think like that essentially is what Tony Stark is, except Tony Stark has a lot of money and, a background, and she doesn't. So I don't know. I think if RDJ Tony Stark was alive today, God rest his soul for saving us from Thanos and bring the blip to an end, I think he would approve of this. And I'm super excited to see her show now, because I really did enjoy her. And I thought you were right, Ed. She's funny at times. She's dramatic at times. We get that awesome moment at the end where she's got the suit and it's her job to get Namor into the spaceship or whatever it is. So, or the plane to put the heat lamps on him. And I don't know, like, that actress does a great job with every facet of the character they've given her. So I'm excited to see more of her in the show.
Yeah, no, definitely agreed. She was very, very well done as a character. I've read Riri Williams comics, So I was very sad when, like, upon the announcement of her character initially. I was like, I'm sad that we're gonna get this character, but not get the connection to Tony Stark, like a true passing of the mantle type thing. And I feel like they handled it well. Like it doesn't have to be a mantle being passed. It can also be someone choosing to take up a mantle, or just like fill a role or fill a need or do. And they didn't even make it seem like that. They just made it seem like this is just her, her God-given ingenuity, and this is how she chooses to express it. And I think it was really, really well done. And also, this movie, really, so many powerful women, like across the board.
For sure.
Like Shuri, Riri, the return of Nakia, Okoye, Queen Ramunda, like so many powerful women, not to even mention Namora, who from the Atlantean side. Like very, very well done. I'm pretty sure it definitely passes the Bechdel test. I don't know. Do you guys know the Bechdel test? So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I definitely pass it.
But explain it just in case anyone listening doesn't know.
Understood. Yeah. So the Bechdel test is a test for movie diversity, and basically just asks, like, is there a scene where there are two named woman characters having a conversation about something that has nothing to do with a man? And you will be surprised, everybody watching. And you should look this up. Bechdel test, Bechdel. Some of your favorite movies do not pass because there's just never a scene where there are only two women on screen talking about something that doesn't have to do with a man. Like a lot of your favorite movies do not pass the Bechdel test. Not all of the MCU even passes the Bechdel test, which is amazing.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
But I also do wonder if. So I guess what we get of Riri is this allusion, like they allude to like her father in this, right? Like, when she has the car and everything like that. But I do wonder. So we know she goes to MIT because that's where they go to get her, right? Because the whole thing is they're kind of sent by Namor to, like, you got to track down the scientist who built this machine. I do wonder if they left a lot of that. They gave us enough what we needed to enjoy the character for this film, but I think her origins are going to be further explored in her series, which is going to be my best guess. But I do wonder, like, I want to throw it back to you, is that, do you think they're going to try to connect her to Tony, being that Tony was at MIT in Civil War and kind of gave like other grants and things like that? Maybe they do have some sort of a connection in the past, or do you think they're going to drop the Tony Stark connection completely? I was just kind of wondering about that.
I can see them touching on it, mainly because, like, I heard them say, Stark Tech in the movie, so I'm like, it's not completely unfathomed, and clearly there's inspiration there. Even though, like, the red color scheme that she chose to go with is like, it's like not just any red, that's his red, like, so I'm sure they're gonna touch on it and like build it up, but I hope that they don't go out of their way to like make her like an homage to him, and like let her remain her own character. I hope.
Oh, I agree. I mean, plus I think the Tony Stark in the MCU is a bit different because in the MCU he's seen as he's the guy who sacrificed himself to save the universe. Like, there's murals of him that we saw in a couple of the Spider-Man films and things like that. Yeah, there's a whole thing. So
I still get emotional.
Yeah, I agree.
God.
And that's the way he's seen it. So that's where I can maybe say they'll tie it into something with that. But I agree. I don't want them to do it too heavy-handed and just kind of like, I don't know, whichever way they go with it, I'm cool with it. I was just kind of wondering if they were going to maybe possibly explore that in her film. But I also think there's something interesting for the grander MCU with Riri is she goes to MIT. There's two other MCU characters that also go to MIT now that used to know Peter Parker. There's three of them, actually.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that.
MJ, I also did not think about that.
MJ, Ned, and shit. Come on.
Flash, right?
Flash, yes. Flash Thompson, who are all going to MIT, who have no connection to Peter Parker. I wonder if we might see some sort of maybe a cameo by one or two of them maybe in her series.
I'm here for it. I can imagine
I'd be here for it.
I can imagine Flash paying her to do his homework.
Oh,
Flash has endless money.
Yeah. And I would love to see her turn it down now, because Shuri at the end of the movie is kind of like, listen, you might want to end that little side hustle you got going on there. So I don't know. I thought that was fascinating that they had her going to MIT, and I just wonder if it's not a mistake because they rarely ever have coincidences.
Oh, never
in the MCU.
Yeah, I agree. I think we might. Now that you mention it, we might see those characters or one of those characters.
Yeah,
in the show.
I can see them making a cameo.
Yeah, and they don't have to even. You don't even have to mention Peter because they don't know Peter.
There's no reason to mention Peter. No one knows Peter. Who's Peter?
Yeah, and that'll obviously be heartbreaking. Who is Peter?
Who's Peter? I need T-shirts that say "Who's Peter?"
Who's Peter?
So yeah, no, I thought it was cool. Yeah, you wanted. That's where we'll go next. Let's go to M'Baku.
Let's go to M'Baku.
I'm desperate to talk about Winston Duke. I love the man.
Kick it off, my dude. Go ahead, go with it.
First of all, I will say my family is from Trinidad and Tobago, and Winston Duke is from Tobago, so he's practically my cousin. I'm claiming that. I'm speaking it into existence.
Why not?
Wow, what a great character. And he's been actually talking about the film very much on Twitter. So I follow him on Twitter, and he said, and I quote, he said that M'Baku serves as an emotional vent for the movie. So not comic relief, but an emotional vent, meaning that if the scene was too funny, he would be serious. If it was too serious, he would be funny. And he also said that he improvised lines. And I think that's awesome because I don't think that anyone in the entire MCU is allowed to improvise except for RDJ. And so the fact that he says that he had improvised lines and they just let him be him is hilarious to me. And he said that his favorite line that he improvised was calling Okoye a bald-headed demon.
Dude,
he made that up on the spot.
That in both times I've seen this film, that got the biggest laugh. The second he shows up eating the carrot, people already just started laughing. Yeah, they were just like, all right, here comes, he's gonna start some shit right now. And we know it.
He's always there to start shit. I love it.
Yeah.
My favorite M'Baku moment of the whole movie, I was telling Walter this before, is when Namor and the Atlanteans attack Wakanda, and he's kind of looking around and he sees the fishing boat go over. Yeah. And without a moment's hesitation, this motherfucker looks around and just jumps right in and saves him. Like, he does zero shits given for what might happen about this. This job has to be done. Let's do it. That's my favorite M'Baku moment.
My favorite M'Baku moment, and a lot of them are the funny ones, but I'm going to just, I don't want to, but I'm going to have to turn it to the more serious moment he has in this. He has a moment with Shuri where he's going ahead and it's at Ramonda's funeral, and he's talking to her, and another callback to the original film, which I loved, where he's like giving his condolences, and she's like, "Well, what happened to the child that they turned everything over to? Like I thought what happened to that." And he goes, "You know something? You've been through enough. You've been through so much loss and everything. We're past that now. We're gonna move on." I thought that was phenomenal. That was such a great moment for the character. Besides the one we had mentioned of, the Hulk thing and the Fishman sighting. The scenes you guys just mentioned, it's just every time he's on screen, he steals every scene he's in.
Yeah. He really just so much gravitas. So when he walks in, the whole room turns. I saw a video of him at the premiere as well, and he's walking the red carpet and he's doing the chant at the red carpet that he does in the movie, and the actors that play his fellow Jabaris are also there walking with him. So he walks into the premiere and he's like, "Mapa!" And everybody's like, "What the hell is going on?" That's awesome. He is M'Baku.
He really is. It's funny because when I saw him in Us, I was kind of expecting him to be M'Baku again and totally different character, whatever.
No, he's just a goofy guy there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
he's a dad.
He's just an everyday dad in that. I love and Walter, you'll have to do this line for me because I can never pronounce.
Oh my goodness, I love it.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I will repeat it because I've been saying it all day. I've been saying it all day. I've been saying it for days since the movie. My favorite line that he has in the entire film is he's sitting there and they're talking about what they should do in regard to Namor, and this is after he gets punched in the chest, and his tone changed after he got punched in the chest.
Oh yeah,
but
it wasn't about the fish man anymore.
No, and he had respect for him afterwards because he looks at everybody. He says, "Do you know what his people call him? They call him Kul Kul Khan, the feathered serpent god." And then everybody looks at him like, "How the hell do you know that?" And he's like, "You think because we are Jabari, we do not read?"
Thank you for that.
He's just every scene with him is remarkable and phenomenal. And I also told Jason that from now on, if I'm ever insulted by someone, if I'm ever like upset with how someone's behaving, I'm just gonna start going, "Ooh, ooh, ooh," and people will know that I am not to be messed with.
Oh man. So I guess the next character we can speak to is we can talk about Ramonda.
Oh,
like I mentioned earlier, like she's one of the standouts in the film for me. Is Angela Bassett just crushes in this, and another one who's dealt with like so much emotional range in this film. It is mostly like pain. I think that's where she has to. Most of her scenes are just her experiencing pain, losing her son. You know, like having to help her daughter through, and also dealing with essentially the bullshit from the outside world of and calling them out on it. And it's tremendous. And I was shocked when she dies, when
I was too.
Namor kills her. I did not think that they were going to go there, mainly because I was thinking of Shuri as well. Like, wait a second, how much is she going to withstand in this film?
Too much for one character.
I was thinking about it by the end of this movie. The entire royal family outside of Shuri has been murdered by the MCU.
Yeah.
Right? Like you know, I mean, Chadwick, of course.
Yes.
Not. But like the whole Wakanda thing is like Wakanda is introduced in Civil War, and that revolves around the death of the king, right? Shuri and T'Challa's father. And then Shuri then has to lose her brother and her mother in the same goddamn movie. It's like, could you give the royal look? I understand. I'm not a royal family apologist. Can we give this royal family a break?
Seriously, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and we've talked about other MCU characters who have gotten like a lot. Like Peter has done with a lot.
Right.
Peter Parker's taken a lot, but we also know in the comics he goes through shit constantly, whatever. There's love piling on Peter Parker at times, and Thor in the MCU has gone through some shit too. Like he's been through quite a bit, but I feel like those were spread out amongst films. This is just like Jason had mentioned perfectly in the same freaking film, man.
Yeah, it's banger after banger for her. It's like really a lot to take on. And one line that like gave me chills in the film is like Namor just floating outside the window, and he's like, "Bury your dead, mourn your loss. You're the queen now."
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Like it was said with like compassion, but also, oh my gosh, that hurts so much to hear.
Chilling.
Yeah.
So absolute chilling. But yeah, Ramonda is, in every scene, especially you mentioned the one where she's calling out the French and they actually get caught red-handed trying to steal.
I love that scene.
Vibranium that's there as well.
So what did she say? We as a show of good faith, we will not make an issue of it this time.
Yeah.
Like she says something like that where it's like, but don't fuck with us again is the implication.
Basically.
Yeah. And she brings them right out. It's not like she's just mentioning them. No. She brings them right out right there.
Brings them out in cuffs on their knees. It's visually, it's a great scene.
Yeah, and also, this is just the dumb things that I think about while watching movies, because my brain's running a mile a minute. It's a powerful scene, but I also laughed and chuckled a bit at the fact that the Dora Milaje bring these guys in, and then Okoye tells them to kneel in her tongue, and they kneel, which means at some point in time they were taught that this means kneel down. These Frenchmen were taught at some point while they were incarcerated, like, when I say this, you better freaking kneel down.
Oh, I could totally see her yelling that at them and hitting them in the back, like, get the fuck down, motherfucker.
I mean, Okoye is awesome in this, right? Like we could just say across the board, Okoye.
Yeah.
I mean, she's fantastic, and her story. Like, I'm glad she gets a story arc. You know, like in the first one, she's a great character, but she doesn't really have a story arc, right? She's Dora Milaje, right? Like she has that great moment where she has to decide, am I, you know, who am I protecting? The king as a person, or the king as the crown, right? And that's awesome. But this is actually a story arc that feeds off of that, because Ramonda's like, when eventually Shuri gets kidnapped and Ramonda's acting out of absolute grief, she fires her, says, you know, get out. And she begs her, Okoye begs her, let me just die in battle. And she's like, no, I strip you of that, because you stood by, and when I begged the Jabari, you were not protecting us, you were protecting Killmonger. And I love that was brought back. I love that it was part of the arc, and I love that part of her arc is the redemption for that. Like, she now gets to stand up, and even after being fired, she doesn't have to go back, right? She can turn her back on her people, but she doesn't. She's there in the clutch when the Atlanteans attack Wakanda, and she saves a lot of people, and she is one of the people Shuri taps as like the person to wear the armor that she can trust. And the fact that she got that story arc, I thought it was great, because that actress is fantastic and that character is fantastic. And I think up until this movie has not been explored as well as she could have been.
I definitely agree with that. They really dove into her character and made that whole scene of her getting like ran through by Queen Ramonda. I was like, just the facial acting and the pain in that, but then also the stoicness of like, okay, I'm a general and this is my role, you know, I'll put my staff down, I'll be on my merry way. And I also love that they kind of, you know, they just slide these side comments in, like that, like her husband is still alive. He's still like, he's just kind of banished or like maybe in prison, but like Ryan Coogler himself said, like, yeah, he's still alive. So they like, and I think Daniel Kaluuya is a phenomenal actor. So that's like something they have in their back pocket. They want to pull him back in for something. They can do another whole story arc with her, like saving her marriage maybe or something like that. You know, there's like really endless possibilities there. So it's really cool that they gave her room for growth.
And I love the fact that they acknowledged his absence, because he was filming Nope during this time, and that's why he kind of had to like step aside. Which, I agree. I also enjoyed the character a lot as well. It sucks that he couldn't, you know, find a way to pull off both, but you know, it is what it is. But yeah, you're right. I'm glad they didn't kill him off or anything like that, so they can go back to him, because obviously we will get more Black Panther films. That's a given. And he's mentioned the Disney Plus spinoffs that we don't know about yet, but you know, will be coming along down the line. And also Okoye is given some comedic moments as well when they're going to go ahead and they're tracking down Riri Williams. Yeah, and there's some funny moments that she has during that, and also a badass moment in that fight on the makeup. She's got like the ashy head, and they're like, wait a second, see, I told you it looked great. She kind of made me think of the wig in the first film when they went to South Korea. Sure. It was just kind of that thing again. She also has some serious badass fights, especially the one that was on the bridge with now, you know, not, I forgot what the general is, kind of like the general of the
Atuma. Okay.
And let me tell you this, I was very excited, and you obviously didn't hear me over the person 6 rows back speaking very loudly.
We'll get to that eventually, because that was insanity.
But when the general was named as Atuma, I went, I fucking knew it, because Atuma, guys, was, as you know, that I have my connection with these weird comic book characters is I read a lot of like the Marvel Universe, read a lot. It was just literally comic books of these obscure characters, right? And then they put out these deck of cards with these obscure characters. And Atuma was the first on that deck of cards. And so I know that character very well as the sometimes antagonist, sometimes right-hand man of the Submariner from that. But I also know him because as a kid, I collected those cards when I was watching movies like Kindergarten Cop. So the reason I really remember that character is because in my head canon, every time I see his name, I go, is that a Tuma or is that not a Tuma?
Wow.
And you think I'm doing a bit, but that really is how my kid brain worked. That was a joke I made as a kid to myself all the time. So when they revealed this as a Tuma, I almost wanted to like hit you in TJ and go like, I fucking knew it. Fucking a Tuma.
It is a Tuma.
It is a Tuma.
Oh my god, that's excellent.
But another thing with Okoye though, so she becomes by the end of the film, she gets the armor for the Midnight Angels. So they're also in the comic. That's a comic thing is that's like comics accurate, where she goes in and they're kind of like a subdivision, kind of like the Navy SEALs of wow. Yeah, wow.
Of the Dora?
Wakanda?
The Dora Milaje, yes.
Yeah.
I was having a brain fart there for a minute.
Yeah, she's like Black Ops.
Yeah, you're like, oh shit. So this suit, by the way, and I love the fact that she shits on the suit. Like repeatedly. She's like, because even Shuri's like, hey, yeah, she has notes, of course. She hates it. And she talks about how ugly it is, but then they fucking kick ass in that thing in the final battle. That's great. And I guess that can kind of, you know, where do we want to go next? Do we gotta what do we want to talk about?
Sheesh.
I mean, I guess whatever. I'll move into a story point there. So
okay,
we know that I mean, while we can jump to characters, I do want to get back to Shuri, and we'll find out where everyone ends. So they have this arms race for vibranium, which everyone's pretty much after at this point, and that also ties in Val, who's in this, who we had met in Falcon and Winter Soldier, who was also in
the colonizer's husband.
Yeah, so we didn't know that was a colonizer. Right. Shuri's favorite colonizer's ex-husband. That's in this film. That.
My favorite colonizer. Let's check in on him.
No, she's Julia Louis-Dreyfus is great in whatever she does. When she shows up, she's there. But we also know she's going to be in the Thunderbolts movie, and she's slowly building her team and stuff like that. And she has a mention that she's like, listen, I dream of the day when the U.S. military essentially could have vibranium. I dream about it, much, but I wonder if that's going to lead to a plot point in Thunderbolts and why they're getting together or something like that. I just wanted to throw that out there because there's world building that this film does for the MCU. Also, while it's not it's an MCU film, but it's also does a lot of things an MCU film doesn't do, but it doesn't miss the world building part where those threads have to be connected for this.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I was thinking about thematically this movie, and I didn't even take that into account or think about that, because I came out of the movie thinking this was very, very interesting and contained. I felt like Wakanda is always isolated, and then Namor's people also want to be isolated. And I feel like the movie in itself took that and was like, this is an isolated occurrence. Like they had their little squabble and didn't really affect the larger scale MCU too much. But you make an excellent point. Like how does Val's position here? It does have impact on some level. It's going to have an impact on some level.
Yeah, because I was talking with Tim about this, who's watching us now. We were just like, I wonder if Val was necessary or was she shoehorned in there? Like, if they swiped it out and called her something else, would it matter?
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily in this film, but I think in a larger MCU, that's why she's in this film. Because we're probably going to get a follow-up to at least that story thread. Otherwise, and we're going to find out, like, that's the thing. And we still don't know what Thunderbolts are getting together anyway, so that could be something down the line. I don't know. What else do we got? Well,
I do want to point out that I was very, very happy because the colonizer, and I always forget, Matt Freeman, you said his name was Walter before. You told me, right?
His name was in the movie. The actor's name is Martin Freeman.
Everett Ross.
There we go.
I always forget his name. I just think of him as the colonizer. I love
that's who he is. We know that's who he is.
But I love that he has a genuine affinity and for Wakanda and for Shuri, and they also have a genuine affinity for him, and it's shown because he puts himself in a position after he finds her beads. Shuri's beads after she gets taken to, Atlantis, or I'm sorry, what is it called? I forget what it's called in this.
Talokan.
Thank you, Talokan. When she gets taken to Talokan, and she leaves the beads, and he takes it, and they communicate with him, and he's like, no, okay, I'll give you the information, and he's helping them to a point that gets him arrested by the end of this movie. And when Julia Louis-Dreyfus calls him on it, he's just and he's caught. He's like, yeah, but they're good people. They have all this power, and they don't do anything with it but help people. And what the hell would we do with it? And that's when she gives that line, "Oh, I dream about what we would do with it." And so I like that, like, he helps them, and he's a stand-up guy. And then at the end, just when things are the worst for him, and he's about to be like carted off to prison forever, they come in, they kind of rescue him, and I love that they see him as their own as he kind of protects them. I just really enjoy that because it's not something like he's a member of the U.S. government. The U.S. government is the villain in this movie.
It's fucking CIA. I mean,
yeah, right, exactly. But the fact that like he's a member, he's a CIA, and he's part of the villainous group, but he's a good guy, and they kind of take care of each other. I don't know. I just really like that.
Okoye also has a great line, by the way, in that scene where she goes ahead, she frees him, and there's like, wow, a colonizer in chains. Never thought I would have seen the day. Hilarious. I thought it was fucking great. One other major character we didn't get a chance to touch on before we talk about, like, the prologue and everything was Nakia. Like,
oh yeah,
kind of missing
that big
for
reveal at the end.
The huge reveal at the end.
Big.
Yeah, she comes into the story where I was just kind of like, I know she gets mentioned earlier, and I'm like, man, I wonder how much screen time she's gonna get. But when she shows up, she's a huge fucking deal in this film. Huge. We find out that she was, she's been in Haiti. We don't quite know exactly all the details for it, which we find out a lot of the details at the end of it. But she's also great. She shows up, obviously saves the day, literally saves the day, where she saves Riri and Shuri from, it was kind of like a cave or like an offshoot. It wasn't exactly quite underwater. Because that was one thing, after the first time I saw this film, I was also wondering, wait a second. Shuri needed this suit to go to Talokan the first time without crushing the bones and stuff like that, because Namor has that great line where he's like, your bones would crush, your lungs and all this other stuff. Or you can wear a suit. Whichever one you want. But then when Nakia saves them and they kind of just go out in their, Wakandan tech, I'm like, wait, what happened to the bone crushing and all the other stuff? Was Namor just fucking around with them, or was that like a thing? But then I realized they didn't actually go that deep into the sea. It was just like a cave thing. So that I wonder if it was a massive plot hole the first time around, but second viewing, I was like, all right, that's cleared up for me. I'm kind of good. But Nakia, I mean, I don't know if one of you guys want to start off with what the big reveal is at the end, because she's got a huge thing to do with the MCU moving forward.
Jason, you want to take that?
I mean, the big reveal is Prince T'Challa, right? I mean,
Simba.
Simba.
If she would hold him up like that, the place would have like lost his shit.
I love it.
Yes, I love it.
But we get this beautiful moment, and that's Chadwick's. Is that Chadwick's son?
I don't know, the actor.
I don't believe so, because I think we had mentioned it briefly afterwards, or I was talking to TJ about it, and I wondered, and I could have sworn I saw in the credits the second time around, because I literally was staying for the credits to see what his name was. Didn't match. It wasn't Boseman or anything, so I'm assuming no.
I mean, then if it wasn't, they cast the perfect kid, because that he looks like he could have been Chadwick Boseman as a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I mean, we find out that the whole reason that she left in the first place was because after the blip, let's not forget the blip, because that is important. We don't forget these things. She was pregnant, and it was too painful for her to be away, for her to be in Wakanda that whole time with T'Challa's son while T'Challa was blips, and no one knew he was coming back, right? And so she went to Haiti, and raised his son, which only Ramonda knew about, and now Shuri knows about. And it was a beautiful moment of like introducing sort of. I kind of wished it was. I mean, it doesn't matter, but I wished it was Chadwick Boseman's son, just because of the passing of the torch, the mantle, like, and the feelings I have for that actor here.
I just did some quick research. It's not confirmed.
Okay, so
yeah,
all right.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
But I love that reveal, and I love the fact that she's brought in as like, okay, you're the best of the best, and you need to help us. And she goes out of this movie going, yeah, here's the reason I left, and I want you to meet your nephew. And it's a beautiful moment.
And it also tied together some points from within the movie that I'm not sure if you guys caught on, because I know I didn't catch them going through the movie. Like, Nakia was calling Shuri a lot earlier in the film, probably to introduce them. Probably like, come to Haiti and meet your nephew. And like, she kept ignoring the calls from Nakia because she was mad at Nakia for not being there for them and not being at the funeral. Like, it also explains why there's no Nakia sighting in Endgame. Like, no, I'm calling T'Challa. I don't want my pregnant fiance to show up to this battle for the planet. No, you hide out in Haiti while I go fight this war, you know? Yeah. And then it also, and this line like that gets like lost on people, that at least I lost, because of right before this line, right after this line is when Namor first enters, when he interrupts their conversation. She says to Shuri, like, I have something to tell you about your brother. Mm-hmm. And Namor comes out the water, and you're like, and I completely forgot about that line until like after the movie when I'm talking with friends about it, and they're like, she was probably going to talk about that because Nakia confirmed that Queen Ramonda had been there and had met him already.
Yep. Which I didn't catch that until the second viewing, honestly.
So well done.
Yeah, I didn't catch that until the second viewing. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, okay,
yeah.
Here we go.
Very well done, and it just opens up the path for like, because I know one of the big things of contention after Chadwick's passing is like, recast T'Challa. Should we have a new T'Challa? Like, should someone else play T'Challa? And somewhere down the line, I'm pretty damn sure we're gonna have another T'Challa be the Black Panther at some point in time, and I'm probably gonna cry.
Yeah. But I love that the new T'Challa we're gonna get is a passing of the mantle, and not like they're still saying the original T'Challa Black Panther is Chadwick Boseman. It will always be Chadwick Boseman in this universe. But we're gonna set up a way for the mantle to be passed, and we still get a T'Challa Black Panther, which is important. You and I were talking about that, right? Like we were both kind of torn about like honoring the actor and honoring the character.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a way they've set themselves up to do both, which I applaud them for.
So I guess that's something I want to throw out to you guys, because I know Jason and I talked about this last week. Now, after have seen the film now, do you feel like, because I know there was a point of contention of should they have recasted T'Challa, or should they have gone this way and passed the mantle, at least the Black Panther part, onto Shuri? Do you think it was the right? Walt, I don't know how you felt before this. What side were you on prior to the film, and are you still there now after seeing the film?
Yeah, I was definitely on the side of do not recast the character. As much as I love having the character there, I didn't want to see that done. And I know that regardless of what film, it could have been like the single greatest film put out ever. Everyone in the back of their head would have been like, but what if it was Chadwick? You know, like it would have been better if it was Chadwick, or God forbid, people are like, this guy's way better than Chadwick, you know, and then people are being disrespectful. You know, it just opens too many avenues for like contention and infighting and whatnot. So I was definitely of the school of thought of don't recast the character. And now having seen the movie, and I'm telling you, the more I talk about it, the more I love it and enjoy it more, and I can't wait to see it again. We got a really amazing story. Like, we have a really amazing story, really amazing art. And we wouldn't have gotten that, you know? So I'm very glad that they stuck with that and went through with it, and then found a way to like bring the namesake T'Challa back at some point in the future. And also, I mean, I have a whole little spiel that whenever we get back to talking about Shuri, I have a whole spiel about Shuri that me and Jason got into earlier, which is the reason he asked me to be on today. Just a different perspective that I have. So I'm glad we got Shuri's story, because I feel like in the first Black Panther movie, there was something that was being set up there that I feel like I didn't even realize was being set up there, and then they really took it and they in this movie. So I'm glad we get a chance to have that.
All right, and I know Jason, where side were you on now after that? And I do want to go back to Walt. I want to hear about the Shuri thing.
Yeah,
perfect time to go back to Shuri.
Shuri thing is great. But yeah, no, for me, I've always been. This is something Walter and I talk about. I don't know how I feel about it. Like, Chadwick Boseman is Black Panther T'Challa for me, right, in the MCU. But because he's gone doesn't mean I don't want that character anymore. And that's something I struggle with. Like, I respect the hell out of the actor and what he brings to it, but I also really miss the character. And I think I agree with Walter a lot. Not I think, I know I agree with Walter a lot here, that the fact that they've set it up where they can pass the Black Panther mantle, but also set something up where we might have another T'Challa Black Panther, another shot at exploring an offshoot of this character, at least I'm happy with. So, like, I don't think it would have served the character better to recast. I think I like the way they're going with it. I think Walter's right. If I was watching this and they had recast it and T'Challa, and there was a lot of T'Challa stuff, and it was the original movie we were supposed to get, the back of my head, I would have been always comparing it to negative or positive to Chadwick Boseman. And what I got, I didn't have to do that, and it set something up that could bring that character back, or at least a variation of that character, which is a very comic book thing to do. Like, how many times we kill people, and all right, now your kid is now you, and they're just the same person. Like, there's a lot of things we can do with it. So I'm actually really happy and okay with the way they're handling it so far.
Yeah, I also, I know I dropped in Tim's comment. He never wanted to recast, neither did I. I kind of figured it was the time. And I also remember after the first film dropped, there were people already screaming like, "Oh, make sure the Black Panther in the sequel. Let's go already." And I'm kind of like, pump the brakes, guys. Relax. I know what happens in the comics, but let T'Challa's story go on for it. They can explore that avenue down the line if they want to. And now you got people backing up on that. And I don't know. I think, and I agree with Walt, what you said. We wouldn't have gotten this story if not for what unfortunately had happened. So it did give us something in the end. And I do think, they leave themselves open if they want to explore it or not. You don't have to. You could, you couldn't. Like, you can see what you want to do down the line with another T'Challa being, the Black Panther. Actually, I want to hear your thing first before we get into what the ending potentially sets up. What's going on with Shuri then?
We're talking about like our favorite scenes in the movie, and one scene that really stood out to me, and like, I don't know, I really, in the moment, I didn't realize why I had such an emotional connection to the moment, and then later on, and breaking it down and thinking about it, I came to something that I thought was really cool, and I don't know if this was intentional, but I feel like Shuri, in herself, she has her own story arc with technology. They mentioned it in the first movie. M'Baku scoffs at her and says, we are a nation with like a rich history and tradition, and we put our resources into like a girl playing with like technology and stuff like that. And they don't really go back to it, but for the most part, but it's like they seem to scoff at her, and they have their traditions and their way of doing things. And that's the entirety of the first Black Panther movie. Like, Killmonger gets the, fight for the throne because of birthright and things like that. It's very, archaic and their tradition. And then we come into this film where, once again, Shuri is like, technology is the reason she doesn't get to be with her by her brother's side, because she's so focused on trying to fix things. And continuously, the whole idea of technology versus tradition is like a little story arc that she had a preview of in the first movie, but didn't get expanded on. And that's something that we're also focused on, the story of grief, when she also has a story of growth as a character, because the moment that I'm talking about is when she finally does it. She creates the heart-shaped herb, she takes it, and Nakia is telling her, like, do you want me to put the dirt on you? And she's like, no, you might need to like, you know, cardiac arrest me or whatever. She has her vision, comes back, and then she's so livid and upset with like, I did your tradition. She actually said, I did your stupid tradition, you know, and it still didn't give me what I want. Nothing worked. So like, technology's not working for me. I can't save my brother. Tradition's not working for me. I can't, you know, see my mother. Like, nothing's working for her in this moment. But then the moment that I love so much is when she goes and she lands in the middle of them talking in full Black Panther garb. Once again, M'Baku immediately challenges her arm wrestling.
Oh, let me test this out. Are you really the Black Panther?
Show me that you're the Black Panther. Wordlessly, too. He doesn't even say it. He's just like,
yeah.
But then after that, you know, they celebrate and they're chanting and they're doing their traditional dances and they're singing. And Shuri, like, her mask comes down and you see she's like silently nodding around and she's like acceptance. I feel like she didn't get that from the people of Wakanda in general. She got that acceptance, and it really, I didn't understand why that moment resonated with me, but it made me think Shuri kind of represents like first generation immigrant kids, which I would be one of them. My parents immigrated here from the Caribbean. Like, and if you speak to any first generation immigrant kid, your parents are usually very strict. They don't want you to go out and intermingle with other people, specifically Americans. Like, they want to keep you safe. They want to keep you in the house, and they want you to maintain the tradition and stuff of our culture, and don't let that go. And you see that with Shuri. Her mom is like, no, don't let her go to America. Like, something bad's going to happen. Like, keep her safe. And then people scoff at her technology. So seeing that moment, she lands there, and she's being embraced by her people in their traditional way. So it's also her being accepting of that, of the culture. And I feel like that's a growth that we all go through, like being accepting of what came before you, the mantle of Black Panther, the tradition of the people, but then also trying to incorporate your technology and the changes going forward. And I think that was really beautiful. Like, that arc is something I feel like not a lot of people are talking about because we're so caught up in the grief and her growing as a character and dealing with revenge. But she had her own little growth that she had to go through personally. That was already, the seeds were planted in the first movie.
Yeah, and I think part of her, I agree with you, Walt, like 100%. She struggles with that in this film back and forth, where it's like, she says at one point, you know, the Black Panther is something we need to move on from. We need to build, you know, you need to make sure that none of this ever happens again. I have to, you know, use the technology to do it. And then, yeah, eventually when she sees that seems to be after her mother passes, then she kind of needs to protect her, because the belief at that point is like, wait a second, these people are taking shots at Wakanda because they feel like we don't have a protector anymore. And that's also another story thread that goes throughout this film, where it's mentioned a couple of times where, wait a second, you think we're like, you know, we're vulnerable now, but we're not. And yeah, when she finally recreates the herb, and she gives herself the power of the Black Panther. Another huge thing happens, by the way, during that, when she goes to the ancestral plane.
Oh yeah, we forgot about that.
No, we're not. I think we've indirectly set it up. We're kind of going very well, beautifully. With
all this. Part of the plan.
All part of it. That's exactly how we planned it out. Yeah, so she goes to the ancestral plane, and she sees Killmonger sitting on the throne. Now, Rick is another friend of our show. Unfortunately, he's kind of dealing with some migraines tonight and wasn't able to join us. This dude has been screaming about Killmonger somehow being resurrected and being the Black Panther in this film, and they kept shutting him down. But the rumor was out there he was going to be in this film. And we wondered last week, Jason and I discussed how. My guesses were flashback or ancestral plane. Those were the only two options because he's dead. They're not going to do a cheap way out of this and be like, nah, he didn't die, you know. The whole sunrise scene, that beautiful thing at the end, nah, none of that.
'Tis but a flesh wound.
Yes, oh yeah, exactly. Not a big deal. I got this. Yeah, she sees Killmonger because she's in the same mental state as he was in once he took the herb and went to the ancestral plane, just kind of like just blinded by revenge and stuff like that, like fury. And then he proposes the question: are you going to be like, because he doesn't knock down T'Challa at that point. He kind of looks like he's got the respect from there. You're going to be like your brother, or you're going to be like me? And he says, or you're going to get stuff done. So that's the dilemma she's with. And when she leaves the ancestral plane, she's still about like she's pissed that she saw him, but she's still kind of like, I'm still gonna fucking kill him no more. Like, that's it. Like, I'm still gonna go with the revenge plot, and this is it.
And you know, I thought that was really cool. They didn't show the end of that conversation till later.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't know how that conversation ended. I was so surprised when they panned back to it, and she was like, "Yeah, you're right, Killmonger. This is some good stuff right here. You know what you're talking about, buddy." I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
I'll be honest with you. I think that goes into what you were saying, Walter, about like her having to decide, like her doing what's expected of her, but also trying to be herself. Because like the ancestral plane thing, right? I'm going to go to the ancestral plane and hear who my elders who tell me, okay, well, this elder who I don't really like is going to tell me something, but he's not wrong, but he's not right. But I think the whole thing about Shuri is she's going to make her own way, right? Like it's not about the past and it's not about the future. It's about like the way she wins this battle is not solely through being the Black Panther, but also being the Black Panther tradition, as well as using her technology, who she is now. And I think that's the whole point, right? And I think that's what Killmonger represents. Killmonger comes and goes, well, you're like me. You don't believe in tradition. You don't believe in ancestry, but I'm your ancestor. I'm tradition. I'm going to tell you what to do. And it's kind of in her court to break that, right? Like break that sort of ancestral, like, thought process that we have to always do what our ancestors did, even if our ancestors tell us they're wrong, right? Because in a lot of ways, our ancestors do tell us that through action, but yet we still do the wrong thing. But I think in this moment, this is kind of her breaking that generational like trauma bond, right? Like, okay, this is what's expected of me. This is what I bring to the table. Even when I bring something to the table, this is what's expected of me. Only I can make the change. And that's what she does when she doesn't kill Namor, is she goes, I'm not going to do this like Killmonger or T'Challa or anyone. I'm going to do this like I would do. And I think that's kind of her like story arc in this.
Agreed.
Yeah, she pretty much uses that whole the tech too to pretty much burn him, to really weaken him. When she does the whole, Wakanda Forever, and thing just goes like explodes on him and lights his ass up and everything. So I also just wonder, so if we go towards the end of the film, and there's something on Namor we didn't touch on, but I did want a big thing I wanted to get to in a minute, was, so Shuri is the Black Panther at the end of the film, but then, it looks like it's going to be Challenge Day, or they were going to properly induct Shuri, and then M'Baku comes off the plane, and is like, I'm here to challenge, but he also knows Shuri can be here today. Yeah.
The great savior M'Baku.
So the way I took this, as they had their conversation, they see eye to eye right now, Shuri and M'Baku, and my thing was, I feel like Shuri's going to be the protector and be the Black Panther, but M'Baku is on the throne now.
Yes, that's how I read it.
That was my takeaway of it.
I agree. That's what it seems like.
Which I thought was pretty cool. That it's kind of like they both sort of got kind of what they wanted, because I think she acknowledges, like, he's a great leader. He takes care of his people. He's taken care of Wakanda multiple times now, because he does take them in. When it looks like the city is vulnerable, and he's kind of running the show there. So. Yeah, that's my guess is how that's how it left me.
From both movies, he's always done what's right. Like, he saves T'Challa's not his enemy, but T'Challa's his antagonist, right? In the first movie, he wants the throne. He wants the Black Panther ship. He doesn't think T'Challa deserves it. Yet T'Challa beats him fairly and convinces him to tap out so he doesn't have to kill him, because T'Challa doesn't want to do that. And in response, he saves T'Challa, right? He takes T'Challa's family in. And M'Baku always does what's right. He's the brave one. He's the level-headed one. I think he's the perfect choice to be the new king, right? Because Shuri doesn't want it. This is not Shuri's. Shuri is the Black Panther. Shuri wants to protect people. She wants to do things her way. She doesn't want to be sort of chained by tradition. M'Baku's a guy who can be chained by tradition but still get things done. I think it's a perfect pairing that then they obviously decided, because he comes out and says, they all go, oh, Shuri's coming, the Black Panther's coming. And he comes out and goes, she can't be here today. It's challenge day. Like, they've made this decision together before this moment. And I think it's a good decision. I think it's and it leaves us for the next Black Panther movie or whatever comes after this. It leaves us in a great place because we all love M'Baku. I mean, if you don't, you don't understand these movies, or I don't know what the fuck you're watching, because he's fantastic.
Tim is absolutely loving M'Baku, because that's pretty much the most of his comments so far.
The single best Wakandan.
For sure. Just Winston Duke himself is the single best Wakandan.
Oh my gosh, such a great character.
But like, you put him on the throne and you make Shuri the Black Panther, and you open yourself up for so much to do in the next Black Panther movie. It's a perfect choice. So yeah, I'm talking a lot about something that I should have stopped a while ago, but I like it.
No, I like it, and I also like I like the separation of the throne from the Black Panther mantle. I think that's really cool, because if we recall, like in Civil War, T'Challa was already the Black Panther, but his dad was still the king. So like, those two roles aren't intrinsically tied together. You don't have to be both of them. Like, you don't have to be the leader and the Black Panther. So I think it's cool that Shuri can be the Black Panther and be the protector of her nation, especially because, like, just thinking like that term protector, like wanting to be the protector, and they kept repeating that over and over, I'm sure for a reason. Like she was unable to save her brother. She was unable to save her mother, you know? So like, being a protector is something that she definitely probably wants. It would be something that would satisfy her and be like a way to live up to their memory. But being a queen and being a leader of a nation, that's not what, I don't think that's what she would want in my analysis of the character. So I love the decision going forward, and the end of the film said the Black Panther will return. So, you know, I'm excited to see where she shows up.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess it could be in the whatever Disney Plus series that we get that involves Wakanda, or maybe she even shows up in Ironheart. I'm not really sure.
Maybe.
Because we know we have 2 Avengers movies coming down the line, which you can pretty much pencil when we will see her in. She'll be in Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, you know, for sure.
And she also planted the heart-shaped herb that she synthetically made, which is a cool moment that I saw. That was really nice. Like, it's not like cool. It's something that she's just keeping in her lab and only she can make. Like, she started a new grove. So that's really cool that she's helping also, like, heal the past and heal, like, what was lost for her people.
Yeah, and she calls out Killmonger too, saying, "You destroyed all of this. You're part of the reason I couldn't save my brother, because you were so scared to be replaced." Which, you know, technically is the truth. That's what Killmonger was like. There's not going to be any. It's me or nobody, and that's it. I'm what you got from now on.
Worst cousin ever.
Yes, we've all probably had some shitty cousins, but not nothing like Killmonger.
No one's gonna Killmonger cousin.
Tim's got a question over here. But when we see M'Baku take the heart-shaped herb and kick some ass as men ate our armor, that's what Tim was talking about the other day. He's like dying for that to be a thing. Do we got any thoughts on that, or do we think we're going to see something like this, or do we think the heart-shaped herb is just for the Black Panther?
I feel like the heart-shaped herb might just be for the Black Panther, but if he is the king and he doesn't come back with some badass armor, I think he deserves some badass armor.
Yeah.
Sure, he could hook him up. I'm sure she can build
100%.
something for him. Yeah, some nanotech stuff that'll just appear whenever the heck you need it to.
Yeah, I want to see him duke it out with someone way bigger than him. And I had a friend who said, like, of the humans, of the like human people in the MCU, M'Baku might be the strongest one. Like, straight up just human fighting.
Yeah,
I can't think of many other people that can beat him in a fight straight up that don't have powers.
He took a direct shot to the stomach from Namor and lived. Like, yeah, he's pretty powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So another point I wanted to bring up regarding Namor, though, is the fact that when he tells his story, he goes to his background, he mentions that he is a mutant. Now, for some people, that was a point of contention when this rumor was floating around before the film was released. In the comics, he is referred to as the first mutant. Now,
is he really?
That's what they refer to him as. Now, though, I am more on this. I kind of really want to hear what you guys think about it. And Jason, you're one of the people who
it was a point of contention for me.
Point of contention. There was a lot of wrestling going on with it. I kind of took it, at least in the film, as a literal sense. Not that Namor has the X gene or something like that. I think it's more of like it was a mutation, like literally what the word means, not an X gene, not something like that. Walt, go ahead. I know you were.
I'm just saying, like, we're at a stage right now where like mutant's a trigger word, but it also means something else, you know? Because okay, the Kamala thing, you can't beat around the bush. You heard the damn '90s X in the background.
Yeah,
so,
right.
I can't say that her friend was just like, oh no, you have a little mutation. No, I practically saw Charles Xavier mind waves around her head when they said that. But
the signs were coming together.
Yeah, it's like her name clanking together in metal. Miss Marvel, clink, Wolverine. But I definitely think that this one, everything's intentional. So I feel like it was said there to like get you riled up, but I don't think he's like gonna end up being like X-Men kind of thing, because like he's a mutant because of his family, like his ancestors, his mother, consuming that fruit or
their version of the heart-shaped herb.
Yeah, the version of the heart-shaped herb. So I just think he is a mutant to his people because he has those winged feet and things of that nature. But I don't think he's gonna show up on Cerebro anytime soon.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like it was a point of contention with me. I was kind of getting annoyed that we were rebranding these non-mutants as mutants as we're about to lay the groundwork for the X-Men. I stick by my bones to pick with Miss Marvel with that, because they did, as Walter said, they did set that up. But this wasn't that. This could have been like, this was more, I read it more when he said it like, I was a mutant in the sense that every one of my people drank this and became fish people, but because my mother drank it and I was in her, in her body and whatever, I mutated to become something different, which, as you said, mutating and being an X gene mutant are two very different things. And I don't think they were even implying that he was an actual X-Men mutant. I think they were just saying, yeah, I'm a mutant because I'm different than my people.
And that's what I took it as. Now, having said that, I'm just going to fuck around now and just throw something out there. So we know that there needs to be an explanation in the MCU of where the hell the X gene comes from. It's not just like, hey, somebody woke up one day and they have the X gene and randomly it spreads like wildfire. Whoops, sorry. I've spread it now and it spreads like COVID and suddenly the mutants are everywhere. Do you think maybe they're starting to build the explanation of why the X gene starts becoming alive in people or something like that, or becomes a thing where it's like maybe exposure to vibranium or something like that maybe awakens the X gene in certain people or not? Just playing devil's advocate here with this, because there needs to be something, unless they're going to say it's imported from like another version of the multiverse. I don't know.
Was Miss Marvel's bangle made out of vibranium?
We don't know that yet.
Yeah, we don't know.
That's the thing, we don't know yet. It's possible. They don't mention it.
It's from is her family multiverse people or space people? I forget.
They were multiverse people, from what I remember, if I remember correctly.
The MCU is so weird now.
It really is.
Yeah. Well, since we know that they own the rights to the X-Men and they're coming, I feel like as fans, we're also fishing for anything that we can gravitate to, because we all know something has to happen.
Yeah, and then they teased us in She-Hulk with a little thing.
Yeah, which was genius, because they know, again, them being so self-aware, of the fandom, we all know that we're all like foaming at the mouth to get to the X-Men already.
But also, there's not a single waking moment where I'm not just imagining like all the things going on in the MCU. Somewhere they're out there, Logan is getting into bar fights, and I'm like,
yes.
peak Wolverine. Absolutely, that's what he would be doing.
So yeah, I guess that's just an idea. Like maybe that is the explanation that's going on here. You're right, because maybe there's got to be a connection with her Miss Marvel's bangles and the Shang-Chi's 10 rings and stuff like that. Like those two are, I think they're clearly connected, and that's going to be something. And I don't know if this is something that's connected with that, but I don't know. Or do they just say, hey, listen, the mutants were imported from another universe, the Fox X-Men universe, and we're just going to take the shortcut and import them in there, and that's it. I don't think that's going to happen, though.
I think you're right. I think it's gonna. I don't know if it's gonna be a vibranium. I don't think it's gonna be something we're seeing right now. Like, I think it's gonna be something that they've laid the groundwork for that seems innocuous. That all of a sudden they go, oh, this is the cause of the X gene, and we all go, yeah, that seems plausible. Like, I think that's what it's gonna be.
Something from the quantum realm will come out and activate.
Yeah, there you go. We are getting Quantumania before X-Men.
Oh, and by the way, that whole trailer, I don't know. Walt, did you see this in 3D or anything, or just standard?
I saw it in 3D.
Okay, so yeah, we saw it in 3D as well, and I got to see it in IMAX the next day. That trailer, because when we saw this movie, I'm like, I wonder if the 3D was really necessary for this film. Not really, but when I saw the trailer for Quantumania, I'm like, yeah, that might be something you need to see a little extra for. Like, we might need some 3D and some IMAX for that crap.
My most excited part about that, I was telling Walt this yesterday, or maybe even today, I don't remember. It's when Kang comes down in full costume. Like, I get Kang, guys. I never thought... No one ever wanted Kang before, except for me. And now we all want him. But I really want him because I've always wanted him. And now I get him. And he looks awesome. I love it.
My most exciting thing is that Bill Murray?
Yeah.
Bill Murray.
Exactly.
That's my most exciting thing. I don't know why. I never thought I'd get Bill Murray in the MCU.
No, not at all.
He always shows up when I need him. The end of Space Jam, the MCU.
Space Jam.
He's just that iconic figure for me, and I don't know why. It's just him jogging in at the end of Space Jam. I'm like, that's my great white savior. Bill Murray.
I now want a movie where Bill Murray is your great white savior, fairy godfather.
Yeah, that's what he is for me. I haven't even seen a lot of his work. It's just in my childhood mind, it's like, that guy was there when I needed him.
When ghosts were taking over New York City and stuff like that,
he was there.
Absolutely.
He was there.
When the same day kept reliving itself over and over, he was there.
When a gopher was being a prick and running around the damn golf course, Bill Murray was there to take him out too as well. So before we wrap this up, like Jason, so now there's a lot of vibranium talk going around. It's an arms race for it that we've talked about. I mean, we didn't get to see him, but we got to assume that Victor can't be too far away.
He's looming.
Victor Von Doom's got to be around there somewhere.
There was so much talk and rumor of even like a reference to him or something in there. And Ryan Coogler kind of shut that shit down in an interview the other day. Actually, he was like, Doom was never on the plate. He actually said, because I love listening to interviews. He said that when they were filming the first Black Panther, he asked for dibs on Namor. Like when they were filming the first Black Panther, he was like, we're gonna do a future film. He's like, no one's used Namor, right? He's like, can I get that? Can I get permission to like lock that down? So like it was planted, but he said Doom was never on the table, nor even like an idea. It was always like, Namor is very important to me, and that's a character that I want to use.
Okay.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because we speculated last week that we thought that was because we all knew there was going to be just one mid-credit scene, and we were kind of assuming that if we did hear anything, it was going to be in the mid-credit scene. But now, having seen the film and like the way it emotionally ends and then picks up at the post-credit scene, obviously now I'm like, don't worry about it. Doom could wait. We know he's coming. All good.
Yeah. I was my eyes were so peeled because my eyes are wired for Easter eggs. But when they were having the scene in the UN, I was like, oh, if I see a Latveria nameplate there, I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna lose my mind. But no, false alarm, guys.
You know, I'm gonna say I of course wanted a mention of Doom because I always want a mention of Doom, no matter what we're talking about, no matter what movie it is. If we were talking about Thor: Love and Thunder, I'd be like, and you said there's a possibility that Doom could be mentioned in this movie, I'd go, yeah, fuck yeah, he could. Yeah, give me Doom. I don't care about this movie. Having said all that, I'm actually glad we didn't get a mention of Doom. I think Doom's presence would have detracted from what this movie was trying to do and doing very successfully. It was telling a story. It was giving us character moments. It wasn't fan service. It was a real movie with characters fans like. And I think, as much as I can't believe I'm saying this, I'm glad we didn't get any Doctor Doom stuff in here because I think that would have been fan service, and I felt that would have cheapened what this movie was doing. Agreed. Having said that, give me fucking Doctor Doom in the next movie, motherfuckers.
Oh, I was about to say, on to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania for our next Doom mention, because that's what it has to happen now.
Yes, absolutely. Kang's going to be like, have you heard of this Victor guy?
Yeah.
No?
Not
He's
really?
a big deal.
And I would love to break the fourth wall just for one time and go to the audience and be like, you've heard of him. I know.
One might say Victor's destiny is in Doom.
No.
All right, so that pretty much wraps it up for us on this episode of Granny's PG. Thanks for joining us as always. If you join us on Facebook, go ahead and join the Granny's PG Facebook group as well. We got a bunch of stories and other conversations that go on a daily basis, trailers and whatnot, and rumors. So join in on the fun there. Also check out at Pop Culture Pros as well. You can go ahead and they're the mothership who we're represented by, popculturepros.com. Join their Facebook group as well. If you're joining us on YouTube, subscribe to at Pop Culture Pros. Check out all the other cool stuff that we got. Twitter, follow at Pop Culture Pros. Same thing as Instagram and wherever you found your audio-only podcast. Walt, what do you got going on here? Anything?
Same thing as always. Walt Rants on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all those jazz. That's about it. In M'Baku we trust.